Hi everyone, welcome this afternoon to our session today on innovation in digital twins and IoT. I'm really excited to be able to present to you today such an amazing lineup and a Coral Gables case study for our afternoon. I don't know how any of you's morning's all been, but it's been quite an inspirational day, and so to now get really tactical and practical with some of the technologies and the trends that are shaping digital twins in particular, it's going to be a really good session. Joining us today, we have with us Raimundo Rodulfo from the city of Coral Gables, followed by Hendren, the Senior Director of Local Government Sales at Cyclomedia, and George Reed, the SVP of Sales and Marketing from Siradel. And finishing up, we'll have Michael Dunaway, Associate Director for Innovation and Smarts and Connected Systems at NIST. The format that we're going to run with today is a little bit different to some of our other sessions. We're going to situate you all with 20 minutes of presentations, a bit of a rapid-fire approach to a deep dive on the work that everyone's doing. And then we're going to end up with a panel conversation so that we can unpick some of the work that's being done. I'd encourage you all to think of some questions and hold them up to the end, and then we'd really love for you to be able to jump in with them as well. So I won't waste any more content time and invite Raimundo to join us.
Thank you, Meredith. Good afternoon, everyone. So it is a great pleasure to be here, great honor to be with this panel of distinguished experts. And I'm going to speak briefly about our City of Coral Gables cyber infrastructure, our cyber physical infrastructure of smart districts, and how we apply technologies like IoT, artificial intelligence, computer vision, AI, and we horizontally integrate data from all domains, from sensors, from systems, from citizen engagement, from the environment, and we make sense of that data for actionable insight for decision making in real time. So what you see here is, to this side, is our smart district. So it's a map of Coral Gables. We have divided our city in multiple smart districts that have hyper connectivity, hyper automation, digital inclusion, and connectivity that helps in all those different verticals and domains, from mobility, public safety, quality of life, and environmental sustainability, like getting air quality and water quality and getting that data to help during emergency response or during management of utilities and resources. Help us to save cost in energy, reduce carbon footprint. So all that is happening in the smart districts. This is why we continue growing those districts and expanding the fiber optics that provides that last mile connectivity. Those layers of connectivity that you see in the center, that busy diagram there, is what we call our engineering framework. That starts with that foundation of high-speed communication that makes everything possible. That layer of cyber physical systems, of smart lighting controllers, smart sensors, traffic sensors, counters, and that layer of intelligence, data insight, that is our distributed clouds where we aggregate everything. That's where we have the digital twin. And the smart city hub, where we deliver the value to the citizens, that digital value, that digital supermarket of value to the ecosystem of people, businesses, organizations, intelligent things and systems that makes everything possible. And to the other side, you will see our latest technology in smart city poles. It's aerospace engineering technology that provides a modular design. We had the first pilot in the US in the downtown of Coral Gables. It's modular technology, and we have more than 20 different types of sensors, from traffic, safety, environmental, and Wi-Fi, 5G, and we have all those technologies in one single pole, and we continue integrating more of that technology. To make it more beautiful, because we are the city beautiful, we partner with industrial design firm Pininfarina from Italy, and now we have those 3 new designs that you see at the top that are going to incorporate also the Mediterranean revival flavor of our aesthetics in our city. And this is the horizontal integration model. This is the core of the paradigm we are achieving. Communication, breaking all the silos, integrating data from financial, from asset management, from LiDAR, from systems on the terrain, from smart city sensors, traffic, analytics, behavioral, asset management, all the systems integrated. That brings efficiencies. That allows us to connect in real time with cybersecurity and best practices and data governance, all those different data domains to achieve value, to achieve efficiencies in real time, and connect data from the county. We collaborate with Miami-Dade County, with neighbor cities, with universities, connecting data from supercomputers, from the DOE or from the University of Miami to help us augment our capacity in real time. That's horizontal integration. That is the core, that is the paradigm, that is the vision that we are achieving with the digital twin. Finally, if you go to coralgables.com/smartcity, that's our smart city hub, you can access also our digital twin. It's on URL, coralgables.com/digital twin. Here we are horizontally integrating in real-time data from all these domains, and we are able to do a lot of things, like virtual inspections, building information modeling, getting data from smart parking sensors, from smart city sensors of core management, smart light, energy consumption, etc. So pretty much ask any question about the city, from what is the speed of the wind, what is the air quality, what is the quality, the salinity, resistivity of the water, and then you will get that from our digital twin, and that's the paradigm. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Raimundo. Am I pushing the wrong? Oh, the green button. I almost pushed the red button there. Don't push the red one. So my name is Danny Hendren. I am the Senior Director of Local Government Sales for Cyclomedia. Very honored to be a part of this panel today. Appreciate you all joining us. And I'm going to talk two case studies, really, and kind of bear with me because I am not our expert on our fiber projects, but our expert on our municipal projects. But in this morning, in the opening session, we're talking about fiber, right? Internet, connectivity, IoT, and going to talk briefly about Cox Communications and their build-out. So we have the multi-system advantage with the smart communities, the deployments of the build-outs, trying to get the attachments to the poles. They have that blanket coverage, and then their experience. So these entities, these cable companies, telecommunications, have a lot of experience with public-private partnerships. So their traditional HFC hybrid fiber coax model and trying to build out using that has just proven incredibly inefficient. Their CAD maps, their 2D GIS, just not adequate to be able to go in and conduct these fiber to the home, fiber to the structure types of projects. So what they are looking to do is build out these digital twins, right? These smart cities, knowing where all of the infrastructure is within that right-of-way, all of the pole attachments, where the poles are located, and having a high accuracy 3D model to be able to map that out. So what Cyclomedia has done is worked with Cox and with the municipalities to conduct these inventories of the utility poles to ensure that they're not overcrowded with these communications lines, to identify all of the attachments, and to identify any obstructions as well. So our trees, our road features, overhead infrastructure, all of that mapped in that 3D environment so they can have an accurate location for all of that connectivity, bringing essentially high-speed internet and cable TV to the community. And this right here is, I have some just graphic slides. I'm more of a visual learner myself. And this is an analytics platform that Cyclomedia works on. So this is a full 3D representation of that mobile or terrestrial LiDAR that has been colorized with street level imagery. So very high degree of accuracy, and you can see all of the overhead infrastructure has been inventoried and mapped and available to those telecommunications companies. So second, again, I'm honored to be a part of this panel. I've worked with Raimundo here in Coral Gables, and we were happy to be one of their data providers whenever they initiated this digital twin project. So what they initially worked with Cyclomedia to conduct is that high resolution street level imagery and then the terrestrial LiDAR, so the 3D information along the streetscape to be able to map the assets and the infrastructure that's in the right-of-way. So they conducted an inventory of, I think it was around 18 or 20 different features that included a pavement analysis, a sign analysis, sidewalks with their cross slopes, with their running slopes, kind of that ADA compliance, the drains, manholes, kind of the list goes on. And when we were talking prior to this, I said one of the unique things was the trash pits and the Coral Rock signs there in Coral Gables. So Cyclomedia came in and conducted this survey and delivered that high resolution 3D LiDAR. So again, this is the Coral Gables City Hall, one of my graphic slides, my visual learning, right? And then you can see how that's represented in a cloud-based environment. So we have the imagery on the left-hand side. That image right there is a full 3D representation, which allows the municipality to go in and access and locate all of the features along that right-of-way. So with that, it over to George.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is George Reed. I'm responsible for sales and marketing in the US and Canada for Siradel. So, who is Siradel? Raise your hand if you've heard of Siradel before. Great. So, we're a 28-year-old company. We're headquartered in France. We have a parent company called Engie, a $60 billion energy company that's focused on renewable energies, carbon footprint reduction, sustainability solutions. We've been a subsidiary there for 5 years. We work with them on numerous projects, and we work independently. What makes Siradel different from many of the companies is we have this unique multi-domain experience. And we've been a map producer for a number of years, so those who are GIS folks know what LOD, level of detail, 1, 2, 3, 4 means. So we ingest data. We ingest LiDAR point clouds, for example, from companies like Cyclomedia to create our digital representations of the city. We also have extensive experience in a big portfolio of wireless propagation and network planning solutions. And every city going forward has to be connected some way to make it smarter. And it could be both wireless and wired connectivity that will create the solution that enables cities to do all the smart things they want to do in the future. And then lastly, we're a 3D digital twin producer, and we have a whole portfolio of smart solutions. So I'm just going to take it back a second and say, well, what is a 3D digital twin? I met some folks here that don't necessarily know what that means, so I'll just give you a kind of a high-level definition. It's really a 3D model that starts with I'll say data source from different sources: satellite, aerial LiDAR, terrestrial LiDAR, indoor LiDAR. And once you have that map, what makes it a digital twin is really adding in thousands and thousands of data sets of information, geo-referenced data sets. And that's what really gives you a digital twin. It's a centralized repository of information that allows you to get a holistic view of, we'll say, of the as-built or the current situation of what the city looks like. That's your starting point. What can you do with that? What makes it more interesting? You add in data analysis platforms so you can do cross-correlations and gather deeper information and analytics about the city. You add in a real-time capability, so now you can interconnect with any of these connected solutions, and we get that data in real time or near real time and make decisions about what can be done in reaction to such data. We layer in a simulation capability so we can do the what-if scenarios for future projects and planning. And then we provide a web service platform so you can develop your own solutions, you can co-create solutions, and you can share that data across your constituents being, in many cases, citizens and other businesses that you're trying to work with in your communities or existing businesses in the communities already. This is a blow-up of connected infrastructure. So we have an example where we have 9 different connected infrastructures: lighting, traffic, security, waste. And then we also have a blow-up here of some various simulations that we do. Wireless, flooding, green buildings, solar potential, GHG reduction. So there's a lot of different things. But there's even more possibilities as you start to look at cities in several different angles. That being connectivity is a strong part, a circular city, an inclusive city. Inclusion is incredibly important for cities all over the world today. What about making a city attractive? What can you do? So there's all kinds of capabilities and embedded in these different slices of the pie that will help you going forward to make your city smarter, more intelligent, more responsive to citizens' needs, more inclusive, and more sustainable and resilient. Just a couple quick examples. We've done a services platform. This is the Greater Paris region. It's 2.5 million buildings. It's 12,000 square kilometers. That's about 5,000 square miles. 10,000 data sets of aggregated information with over 150 partners to co-create new services for the city and the citizens. And then we also do performance contracts. These are long-term contracts with our parent partner, Engie, where we're looking at 20, 30 years out to say, invest this money now and we can save you this kind of money going forward. It's a performance contract, and you can see on the right-hand side some of the energy savings, like with public lighting and buildings and water consumption. That's it for me.
Thank you, George. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Michael Dunaway. Let's try that. I'm Michael Dunaway. I'm with the federal government, which means I do not have pretty slides, but I have functional ones, and they get some information across. I'm with the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, which some of you probably realize is the research and development lab of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And unlike most research and development labs, our mission is actually to position U.S. industry to be successful in high-tech research and development efforts, and we support that with some real cutting-edge research in some very esoteric areas like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and things of that nature. I'm not going to talk about any of that. I'm going to talk about smart cities. So we've had an effort underway for about the last 2 years to develop a method to measure smartness in a smart city. And the starting point for all those kinds of efforts, for any organization, doesn't matter what it is what do you mean when you talk about a smart city? What does it mean to be smart in our term of reference? So we've been working on this for a while to make this as condensed as a definition as we can get it. But the main point is to establish parameters which we can run analytics on and understand answers to the two fundamental questions. What do you measure and how do you measure it for a smart city to determine, A, are you making the correct decisions at a policy level and applying the right technologies in the right places to see positive benefits for the community itself and to actually improve the quality of life for residents, but to include improve their security, their safety, their economic viability on the broad scale, their ability to integrate with other regions that have other smart city operations and other smart city frameworks. So these are the definitions. I won't belabor this issue. You can see this here. But I want to take a step back just momentarily and talk about what has happened in the smart city realm that I've seen over the last 8 to 9 years. And I think all of us have probably seen much the same thing. So when we started down this path in the Global City Teams Challenge, which is the program that I lead at NIST in smart cities, it was all about technology. And I know all of you have seen this. This is probably your first thoughts as well. It's a smart city incorporates technologies. But as we got a little farther into this, I'd say about 2 years into our own program, we began to realize the technology was actually for something. And what it was for was to collect data, to increase situational awareness and understanding of the relationships between our infrastructure, critical infrastructure systems, the population, the environment, all those kind of issues. So then that leads to the next question: what is the data actually for? And what the data is for is to enable decisions. And those decisions are the kind of decisions that a mayor's office makes, as the chief of police makes those decisions, the city council makes decisions, the citizens themselves make decisions about their environment and how they interact with it and how they live and how they assess their own quality of life. But that gets to some other conundrums that touch us all, having to do with how do we trust the decisions that are being made? Are they being made on good data? Are the decision engines that are driving the decision-making processes, do we trust those engines? Do we trust the decision-making process itself? And do we trust the decision makers and our relationship with our own leadership and our communities, and are they acting on our behalf as we understand our behalf and as our best interest? So then we get to the next step, and that has to do with validity of the engines and the data systems themselves, but more important, it gets to the issue of trust. And I think this is what we have all seen in the evolution of smart cities over the last 8, 10 years, but really we've crossed a threshold over the last 2, maybe 3 years, and we now understand that a smart city is not about technology, and it's not even really about data, it's about trust. And trusted systems, and overall, and this is a term that we're adopting in the Smart Cities program for NIST, it's about community integrity. And integrity is a really good word in this respect because on the one hand, it's a systems engineering term, meaning integrity of the system, which is to say critical infrastructure, social systems, economic systems, but it also has a moral component or an ethical component. So what we want are cities that act with integrity and decision makers and decision systems that we can trust to give us decisions as an outcome that we can trust act to build a community with a higher degree of integrity and more benefits across the entire population that the entire population can generally realize or can access. Okay, so this is the document that we have most recently published. This is published this in March. This is the Smart Cities and Communities Framework for Key Performance Indicators. We call this, in a nutshell, the Holistic Key Performance Indicators Framework. I'm going to throw up another slide in a second with some Q codes on all these documents, so that'll help. I can't go through this in detail because we don't have the time, but the main thrust of this is we have analyzed or attempted to analyze systems in 3 systematic fashions. Looking, as you see at the baseline there, on data, sensor systems, the data flows, the IoT and connectivity at the computer and IoT and communication level, and that information and its connectivity flows to things that manage city systems. So these are the points at which the infrastructure actually benefits from all this data and the IoT systems that we've developed. But then the next level, which is the important one, is how are we seeing the benefit? What are the benefits that we're gaining from this architecture and the structures that we have constructed to make the city more understandable to its leadership, but also understandable as a self-aware adaptive system? So what is the benefit that we gain out of that? And this, you can see the architecture here that sort of goes into this. We've taken this to a next step inside this document, which looks for an example, and this is on the right-hand side of the slide here. If you analyze this systematically for one building only, just one building, what are the IoT systems that the building manager, that the building supervisor uses to manage the environment inside the building, and how does that environment shape the behavior of the people that reside in that building? And is it beneficial to them? Are they more efficient because the system is delivering processes and delivering outcomes that make the work environment or the living environment better for the community? And if you take that one step further up, you can say, is that building contributing to the overall environment of the city? Has it reduced its heat map infrastructure in the city? What is it contributing in terms of pollution or control of pollution, et cetera, et cetera. And I won't belabor the issue, but you can see where this is leading. So the question is, if you can do this for a building, can you do this for a society? And this is what we really want to get to with the holistic key performance indicators, is not to be able to analyze only the critical infrastructure systems and the IoT systems, but the relationship between those and the society and the community and its population and those benefits. So if you want to take a picture, this is the one to photograph. These are the documents that NIST has published relative to smart city systems and infrastructure. The Q codes are accurate. I hope if you blow that up, you can get to them. But if you can't, if you blow up the documents themselves, you can query those on a Google search or a search engine search and turn up the documents themselves. And these are the ones that we have done to sort of begin to build a library of technical documentation to answer that question: what do we measure, and how do we measure it for a smart city? So with that, I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. I knew we had a really amazing lineup that was, representative of the ecosystem more broadly when it all came together, whether it's the city itself, the data visualizer, the integrator, or the research and academia arm. But I wasn't quite prepared for a panel that also really stuck to timing. So thank you for that, guys. A couple of quick questions for the group now. We've had a bit of quite a rough overview and context of what is clearly a massive body of work, but it's all to inform a conversation about the people and our communities and how that fits within the broader context of our work. So, Danny, with that in mind, I wanted to ask you, with your experience, what are the major step changes that you've seen in IoT and digital twins over the past couple of years, and what do you think the main drivers are behind those?
Yeah, thank you. So my background is actually federal government. I started out my career in federal government and county government, and then moved along into the remote sensing world. So when I first began in remote sensing, we all kind of were moving into that three-dimensional data. We were all still mapping in 2D. When I first started, we had black and white NAPE imagery. Then we started moving into LiDAR, creating these 3D models. We're now realizing the benefit of this 3D data. And what has happened, like I said, over the past 2-3 years, is that data has advanced and the collection has advanced so quickly that now we have this super rich data where we can collect it at ground level. We can collect mobile LiDAR. We can collect internal LiDAR of the structures in the buildings. And that is just, it is blown me away at the advancement of the technology in my career going back 20 plus years, and now in just the advancements that have been made in this type of technology, and everybody moving to these 3D models. So, and I'm sorry, you had to repeat the second half of the question, the drivers?
I was going to ask you about drivers.
Driver.
But I think given timing, I might take the conversation about drivers and move to George. Is that
Sure.
all right? I'm
Yeah,
just
that would
watching
be
our
great.
countdown scenario.
No
But
problem.
Danny, that's not to undercut LiDAR in any sense of the manner. George, I wanted to get a sense from you and in your experience around where do you think the biggest subsectors for opportunity growth are? You know, we're thinking about drivers. We obviously saw your presentation speaking quite strongly to the percentages around different various utilities. Where can cities who want to invest into digital twins see quick returns on ROI, and how might that also be influenced by the competing drivers?
Yeah, good question. So, quick return. That's a pretty easy one from my perspective. If you have not done an LED program, so you're replacing your solar lamps in your city, go out and do the LED replacement program. You'll get an immediate uptick in terms of saved costs because the LED lighting is so much more efficient. So, you know, that's a quick 30% reduction in your electric bill. So that's a big win right off the bat. Where we see some other drivers are, let's face it, every city has some kind of traffic problem. So if you can do some traffic simulations and do some optimizations around that, I think that's extremely helpful for your constituents, which are the people that are commuting in and out of your city on a day-to-day basis. And then also there's a tremendous move towards inclusion, particularly in the U.S., where we've seen lots of capabilities to analyze what's happening in your city by ingesting these data sets of information and crossing that data set to see where I have resources, where I don't have resources. How can I build out broadband to all of my constituents? And that was certainly highlighted within the COVID area and the pandemic, where all of a sudden the schools closed down, businesses closed down. How do people have connectivity if it's not already in their neighborhood? So those are some of the things that I see from that perspective.
Thanks, George. I love that. So, Danny, you spoke about buildings, and George touched on lighting and, of course, traffic. But how do we get that inclusion benefit out of those systems when they come federated? So, Michael, I wanted to ask if you've got any comments around major barriers to interoperability, in particular around federating systems and how we're going to get that social return out of that investment.
Yeah, I think I would frame that this way. So we're making really enormous advances in modeling and simulation. And you've seen really good examples, 3 really good examples at the city level here, all having to do largely with modeling GIS mapping, critical infrastructure systems, electrical flows, data flows, that kind of thing. The real challenge in the future, I think, is going to be incorporating the human beings into those models and begin understanding how the population in a community at which we can model at a very high degree of fidelity, how do we model both the collective behavior of the population and the community, and how do we model the individual behaviors so individuals can benefit from that modeling process? And obviously there's a lot of relationships having to do with private information, and the relationship between the population and the information that it knows about itself and that is known about it. Those problems have to be squared, but the real issue is how do we understand in real time the dynamic between the human population and I should say actually the human population and the non-human population as well. Let's incorporate the rest of the population in a given environment. How do we understand the relationship between that population, the environment as an ecosystem, the built environment as an ecosystem laid on top of the other one, the natural ecosystem, and then how all of the systems relate to each other? And if you want to take that one step farther, begin applying high-performance computing and artificial intelligence into that so we can do that in real time and we can begin to understand the dynamic system as it evolves over dynamically over time. This is really critically important, and we all understand this during a disaster like a hurricane evacuation. And how do you model the population's decision-making process at the individual and aggregate level during a hurricane evacuation in order to optimize that human flow out of the endangered territory? So that's an artificial intelligence and a high-performance computing problem if you want to do it in real time. So I think those are the frontiers that we're going to be getting to eventually.
Thank you very much for that one. And last but certainly not least, Raimundo, I wanted to ask you from the lens of the city, given the rich context that Coral Gables has been presented today, what do you see as the next horizon for digital twins in Coral Gables? And in particular, how do you plan on harnessing both the community and industry to deliver that?
So one thing is that we continuously realign our strategies with the needs and priorities of our community. So some of those future developments are going to be driven by community needs and by strategic goals of the organization. Can be a focus on optimizing traffic in real time, like we are doing today with the Pacific Northwest National Lab and the DOE, building that communication between intelligent lights and connected and autonomous vehicles. That's one experiment that will bring a lot of value to the digital twin for traffic, but also maybe other priorities of the community, like environmental priorities. Now that we get data in real time from water canal sensors and from the environment, how can we correlate that data and inform better decisions, like Michael was saying, during emergency response, during storm management? So all those things are going to be driven really by the needs and priorities of the community. So it's a strategic realignment. It's not only one strategy. Some of the research we are doing today has to do with Web3, with immersive user experience. So we have a special computing lab. In that lab, our GIS manager is working with researchers from universities. We are testing technologies like virtual reality headset applied to the digital twin. So we can do virtual inspections. We can do more of those building information models that we have, that VDC component, CAD component in 3D. We are also incorporating the user experience that is the immersive experience that will allow us to do more of the things that we were talking here about. So how is that future going to look when we have all those ecosystems intertwined? And also we are going to be able to connect all the dots between the environment, between the behavior, between the traffic, and between the citizen engagement data that we are getting a lot. A lot of millions of data points that we are getting. What we do with those data points, the value is in the correlation.
Thank you very much. We've got a couple more minutes. Would anyone in the audience like to throw any questions to our panel? Excellent. If you'd like to stand up, great, go for it. Just to your left there.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My question is, as sir mentioned, about how the technology and integrity how technology boils down to integrity. Can it also encompass things like human welfare in terms of mental health, how it creates, how the stress creates effects because of climate change, so that our technology is, when it is boiling down to all these levels, it is also reflecting the development in terms of things that have been affected for the recent decades, especially because of pandemic.
So if I understand you there, you're asking about how we're incorporating social analytics and various other human insights into digital twins, and I think that might be for Michael to jump in on.
Yeah, that's a tough question. And also, I have to tell you, that for those of you all probably know, the acoustics in here are so bad we have a really hard time hearing your question, so when you please speak up when you do, and we understand your question. There is real work of a very important nature being done. I think in quite frankly, research universities are doing more work in this area than the national laboratories are, certainly at NIST, that are looking at that relationship between human population and environment. And we are at a point, which is to say, unfortunately, where there is a great deal of motivation because we all understand what is looming out on the horizon, maybe 5, 10, 25 years into the future, relative to the challenges we face as a result of climate change or certainly large-scale ecological events. and the relationship with the infrastructure that we currently have and the one that we're hoping to build. And so what we're trying to do on the infrastructure side, which is to say the built infrastructure, is to think 15 to 25 years ahead to understand where the ecosystem is headed and build to that, not to rebuild what we currently have, but to think about how to build resistance. We just came from Raimundo's City Hall in Coral Gables, where they have the police department, fire department, and it's a Category 5 building built from scratch. So he probably has the most disaster resilient building in this entire region, or at least one of them. And we need to be thinking like that, and then also how we integrate the understanding of the population. But we're going to be living now with a new environment which is changing as we're watching it. And I think, as I said, I think a lot of that really important research is really being done at universities, where they're looking at the human, looking at the human dimension, while the national laboratories and we're looking at things like resilient electrical grid, critical infrastructure systems, and then very high-speed analytics for things like modeling in simulation systems. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to throw one surprise question at George, purely because I'm excited to end our session on a positive note as well. There's so much opportunity. You could boil the ocean, but realistically speaking, having a principles-based approach to a future-forward federated digital twin system is an amazing opportunity. But George, in your experience, could you give us some ideas about how you might be able to collaboratively fund something like this?
Yes, funding is critical and important, right? So, infrastructure bill, make sure you're working with consultants if you don't already. Have people on your staff who understand the money that's flowing out of the infrastructure bill from the federal government to the states to the cities in the state. This is critically important. So there's money there, but many of us don't know how to go get that money and what you have to do, and there's timelines associated with that to get that done. Also, there's opportunities where you can do a performance contract with someone, and you can say, you can put special KPIs in there to say, you need to meet these KPIs to get paid over the period of time. You can also put in things, revenue generating solutions, EV charging stations, for example. You can take the EV charging station and you can sell as a city that surplus energy to help power your city, and you can charge for that. So there's a whole bunch of different ways and smart ways in which you can take the assets that you have in your city and do intelligent things with them to optimize the asset value. Another place is smart poles, for example. Let's take that vertical asset that just either carried a telephone line somewhere or a power line somewhere, or used to just be a street lamp, and put intelligence into that. And your payback will be immense because you'll be able to do programs like Raimundo's doing in Coral Gables that gives you the data to be able to react and do things intelligently.
All right, well, thank you very much, Raimundo, Danny, George, Michael. Big round of applause from the audience for our panel. Find them on LinkedIn, find them in the crowd, take them to your Bowls Club, and thank you very much, everybody.